Hey guys, tonight, we travel to an empire built from stone and sand, where the air is hot even before the sun rises. And the price of survival is obedience. You open your eyes inside a clay-walled room with no window, no pillow, and no privacy. The walls seem to breathe with the heat, and outside, the first call of a rooster sounds more like a warning than a welcome. You may have romanticized ancient Iran imagining palaces, silk, and golden chalices, but here's the truth. You're not a king. You're not even a merchant. You're a worker, one of thousands, and your only task is to survive until the sun sets. Before we begin, if you find these stories relaxing or fascinating, please like, subscribe, share the video, or leave a comment to support the channel. Your encouragement helps me create more content every day. Your back aches from the thin reed mat beneath you. You're not alone in this room. 3 others sleep beside you, pressed together for warmth when the desert gets cold at night. You're the first to wake, and that earns you the right to light the fire. The coals are stubborn and gray, and your hands shake slightly as you prod them with a bent piece of iron. You've done this every morning for weeks now. You still haven't gotten used to the smoke stinging your eyes. Water is fetched from the well if you're lucky. If not, you make do with the cracked jar that's been sitting in the corner for too long. It tastes like clay and rust. You drink anyway. Your only piece of clothing is a linen tunic, rough to the skin, worn thin from too many washes in sand-laced water. You slip it on while avoiding stepping on someone's foot. Outside, the sky is still purple. The sun hasn't yet broken over the Elburz Mountains, but already, you hear the shuffle of others waking, the soft clinks of clay jars, and the low calls of people preparing for labor. Today is quarry day. You step outside into dust and silence. The settlement lies in the shadow of a much grander city, Persepolis. They call it a marvel built for the kings and carved into cliffs with hands like yours. You can barely see its towers from here, but you feel their weight every time someone says the word tribute. The king needs stone, and you are the one sent to fetch it. You walk. For an hour, maybe more. Time is a luxury you don't own. The road is uneven, and your feet sting with every step. A few soldiers pass by on horseback, staring straight ahead. You keep your eyes low. The last man who made eye contact was whipped for disrespect. At the quarry, the world becomes noise. Picks hitting stone, men shouting, dust clouding your nostrils until everything smells like heat. Your job is simple: carry rubble, not cut it, not shape it, just drag it from one place to another, over and over, until your shoulders are numb and your hands blistered. By mid-morning, the heat presses down like a physical force. The overseer, a man with sunburned skin and a jaw like a hatchet, watches from under a woven parasol. He has a whip, but he doesn't need to use it often. The threat alone keeps everyone moving. A younger boy stumbles. His load spills. No one helps. The rule is clear: help him, and you risk punishment too. He scrambles to gather the rocks, breathing hard, tears streaking the dust on his cheeks. You pretend not to see him. You're not cruel, just realistic. One mistake is all it takes to lose your position or your life. You pause for a breath, only for a second. The overseer's eyes flick to you. You move again, faster this time. By noon, you're lightheaded. They say the stone you haul today will form part of a new royal staircase. You'll never see it. You'll never climb it. You'll be too dead or too old by the time it's finished. Someone coughs behind you. A dry, hacking sound. A man leans against a rock, his face pale. He's not moving. The overseer doesn't call for help. Instead, he waves to the next man. The line shifts forward, and the sick one is left where he stands. You keep walking. You wonder if his family will be told. You wonder if he has one. The heat makes thoughts dangerous. Around mid-afternoon, you're allowed a break. It's not long, 15 minutes if that. You sit on a flat stone, legs trembling, and unwrap a piece of flatbread from a linen cloth. It's dry, crumbly, and tastes like salt. There's no meat today. There's rarely meat. You eat quickly, eyes on the dust so the overseer doesn't think you're resting too long. There's a saying you hear often: the king sees all. You've never seen the king, but you've seen his taxes, his guards, his builders. You've seen his roads, and you've seen what happens to those who talk too much in line. By sunset, Your arms barely work. The sky glows orange. The kind of beauty you'd appreciate more if your knees weren't shaking. You walk back slower than before. Everyone does. Even the overseer. When you reach your home, the fire's already out. No one speaks. They don't need to. Everyone's sore. Everyone's silent. You collapse onto the reed mat, muscles humming in pain. There's no balm, no clean water to bathe in, just the promise of another dawn, another quarry, another load. Historians still debate whether common laborers in ancient Persia were state employees, slaves, or something in between, but when your body feels like stone, definitions hardly matter. You close your eyes, and the dust behind your eyelids follows you into sleep. Tomorrow, you wake again, and you carry more stone. The second time you wake, the sun is already up, and that's a problem. No one else says anything, but they glance your way as you rush to splash your face with cold water from a cracked jug. You've overslept by minutes, maybe less, but in a place like this, where time is kept not by clocks but by shadows, even a delay like that can mean punishment or ridicule. Today, your assignment changes. The quarry team is full, so you're sent instead to the royal construction site, one of the newest terraces rising in the shadow of Persepolis. They call it the King's Platform, and rumor has it that foreign dignitaries will one day climb its marble steps to kneel before the great king. You doubt that. You barely understand what the king looks like. All you know is that your role is small, smoothing clay bricks, aligning them in scorching sun, and obeying whoever shouts loudest. The road there winds through fields already dotted with bent figures, shoulders curved like question marks, as they harvest barley. Some of them sing to keep time, others move in silence, swatting away flies. You pass them quickly, your own tools bouncing in the sling across your back. At the site, a supervisor waves you toward a half-finished wall. You're not allowed to build the wall, only mix the binding paste. That means hauling heavy baskets of lime and mud, then grinding it smooth with your bare hands. It burns your fingertips. The pain doesn't stop, but eventually it dulls into something background, like hunger or heat. You learn to ignore it. A boy no older than 12 stands beside you. His tunic is stained with white streaks, and his fingers are blistered open. He doesn't speak. He only works. Occasionally, he glances up at the scaffolding. You do too, though you shouldn't. High above, foreign laborers are hammering stone lintels into place. They speak a language you don't recognize, maybe Elamite, maybe something from the east. It's strange to think this empire, so vast and glorious, depends on the muscles of so many people who can't even speak to one another. Yet the work goes on. Someone drops a chisel. It clangs loudly. Everyone flinches. Then silence returns. Lunch comes late, if at all. You sit in the shadow of a half-built column, chewing on yesterday's bread, this time dipped in vinegar to hide the mold. It burns your tongue a little. You welcome the sensation. It means your taste is still intact. As you eat, a shadow falls across your lap. You look up. It's the supervisor, frowning. He says nothing, just gestures. You're late getting back. Again. So you work faster. By mid-afternoon, a traveling inspector arrives. You don't look directly at him, he's highborn, judging by the way everyone stiffens, but you hear his voice as he talks to the overseer. He mentions quotas, mentions discipline, mentions a name, not yours, not today. You exhale. Nearby, a woman with braided hair is painting a decorative frieze with crushed lapis pigment. Her brush strokes are slow, careful, reverent. You wonder what her life is like. Maybe easier, maybe not. Maybe she's a temple painter, borrowed from a sanctuary to decorate the king's walls. You've heard they mix colors with crushed shells, wine, and sometimes even blood. You wonder if that's true. You wonder about a lot of things. You also wonder why your feet have started bleeding. The sandals you've worn for months are thin, now too thin. You wrap them in cloth torn from your sleeping mat. You'll pay for that tonight when the cold seeps in, but right now, anything's better than open sores. A clay pot breaks behind you. The boy next to you winces. He was carrying it. The supervisor marches over. He doesn't yell. He just takes the boy's arm too tightly and steers him away. You don't know what happens next. You don't look. You don't ask. That's the rule. The sun starts to dip again. a bleeding orange behind the mountain crests. You stack your tools in a pile with the others and begin your slow walk back home. You're too tired to notice how beautiful the view is from here. The sky glows like a firestorm, casting long shadows across the dirt. A pair of cranes fly overhead, silhouetted against the sun. You don't look up. Your eyes are fixed on your feet. When you reach your quarters, the room is quiet. The boy is not there. You sit by the door and wait, saying nothing. The others do the same. No one eats. No one speaks. You just listen to the desert wind, to the hiss of someone sharpening a tool, to the quiet breathing of men who are still alive, but don't know why. Historians still debate whether daily life under the Achaemenids was structured or chaotic, benevolent or brutal. But from where you're sitting, it feels like a machine well-oiled, unforgiving, and indifferent to the parts it consumes. You fall asleep with grit in your eyes, and wake again with more bricks to carry. The second time you wake, the light is already seeping through the fabric door, and that alone is enough to make your pulse quicken. You've overslept. Not by much, maybe minutes, but time in this place has its own cruel precision. No one scolds you aloud, but the way others shift their eyes, the slight pause in the rhythm of their movements, it's enough. Shame creeps into your stomach like something sour. You scramble to rinse your face with water that smells faintly of goatskin and rust. The clay jug was half empty to begin with, and someone has already dropped ash into it. Still, it's better than nothing. You're reassigned today. Yesterday was the grain hull. Today, it's the terrace at Persepolis. The royal terrace. Just the mention of it in whispers carries weight. Some call it the platform for kings. Others a monument for diplomacy and tribute. No matter what it truly is, your role in it is microscopic. Lifting, mixing, fetching, and enduring. Your walk takes you through barley fields being reaped in slow rows. The workers, mostly older men and small children, wear strips of linen around their necks to block the sun, though the fabric is so thin, barely filters anything. A few hum low songs with no words, just the rhythm of labor. The scent of earth and sweat clings to everything. One man swats at a fly with the precision of a soldier, missing it, then continues his harvest as if the motion were part of the cycle. At the site, the scaffold looms like a skeleton mid-assembly. Stones have been hauled in from distant quarries, polished until they shine, waiting to become something eternal. But today, they are only obstacles to step around. You are handed a basket so worn the straw fibers crackle. Inside it are tools older than your father. You're not trusted with carving. Your job is simpler lugging pale dust, kneading paste with your bare hands until your skin stings. It burns because there's lime in the mix, and no one offered you gloves. No one has gloves. Beside you, boy works. He has a streak of red pigment across his cheek, and doesn't seem to notice. His hands are cracked, fingertips bloated and raw, as if the skin has begun to separate from the effort. He doesn't speak. He only works. Once, he glances up toward the upper platform. You follow his gaze, though you shouldn't. There, foreign laborers sweat through tunics in colors you don't recognize. Their voices twist through the air like wind chimes you can't decipher, maybe Elamite, maybe Bactrian. It's hard to imagine a palace built by people who don't understand each other. But here, that's how everything works. Hierarchies enforce order, not communication. A shout breaks the rhythm. A chisel falls from above and lands not far from where you kneel. Everyone freezes. No one breathes until the supervisor waves his hand and things resume. You try to focus on the task again. Stir, knead, lift, balance, breathe. Lunch, if you can call it that, comes late. You sit beneath a wall decorated with outlines of what will one day be lions or bulls or griffins no one knows yet. The bread in your pouch is too hard to bite. You soften it in vinegar and wince as the acid hits a sore on your lip. Your mouth tastes of metal and dust. You chew anyway. Then the supervisor passes by and clicks his tongue. You're slow to stand. You'll make up the time. Later, a noble inspector arrives, his robes inked with saffron and turquoise. You bow your head even before he speaks. His sandals leave no prints in the dust, a luxury made possible only by fresh soles and someone paid to clean up after him. His voice is calm, measured, and sharp like a blade's edge. He does not address you. He speaks of quotas, of errors, of someone who failed. That someone is not you. Not today, but it could be tomorrow. You glance toward a painter crouched nearby, her hand steady as she applies powdered lapis to the ridged surface of a ceremonial frieze. The blue looks too rich for this dusty place. You heard once that she's from a temple, sent here only for this commission. Her pigments are mixed with ash and wine, maybe even blood. Or maybe that's just something the workers whisper to make the work seem more sacred. Still, she never speaks, only paints. By now, your feet have blistered beneath thin sandals. Each step back across the packed earth feels like walking on knives. You cut strips from your sleeping cloth and wrap them around your toes. Tonight, you'll shiver from the cold, but it's better than bleeding through the leather. A commotion stirs behind you. The boy, the one from earlier, has dropped his vessel. The sound is unmistakable, a heavy pot splitting into shards. You know the consequence before the supervisor even turns. No words are spoken. The boy is taken by the arm and led away. You do not ask where. That is not your place. As the sun slides toward the mountains, you carry tools back to storage. Your arms feel heavier than they did this morning. You haven't spoken a word all day, yet your throat is dry. The sky burns in orange and rose, but you don't look up. You watch your feet to avoid stepping on scorpions, or worse, a noble shadow. When you return, the room is quieter than usual. The boy is not there. No one eats. No one asks. Someone sharpens a blade. Someone else hums an old lullaby. You sit with your back to the wall and close your eyes. Though rest won't come for hours. Historians still debate whether life under the Achaemenid Empire was efficient or merciless. From here, it feels like machinery well-oiled, inhuman, and indifferent to whoever gets crushed in the gears. You sleep with your fingers still surf from the lime, and dream only of silence. You wake before the sun this time, not because you're well-rested, but because someone nearby kicks in their sleep and the blow lands squarely against your shin. You bite your lip to keep from groaning aloud. The others are still curled on the floor like discarded laundry, arms over faces, feet poking from tattered linen wraps, all breathing the same stale air. You sit up slowly, letting your spine adjust to the cold. No one speaks. They never do in the early hours. Speech is saved for necessity, for danger, or for when silence becomes unbearable. Today, you're on food duty, not for the palace, not for nobility, not even for a festival. You're preparing meals for the lowest tier workers, ditch diggers, torch carriers, stable boys, and those like you who move tools from one miserable spot to another. You were chosen, not because you're skilled, but because you didn't complain fast enough when the question was asked. The kitchen isn't really a kitchen. It's a series of fire pits behind a crumbling wall, each encircled with black stones that have cracked from overuse. Ash chokes the air, and smoke finds its way into your nose no matter how often you turn your head. The smell is oddly comforting: burnt grain, damp wood, and a faint trace of salted meat that hasn't been seen in days. You kneel and begin to stir a massive pot of barley gruel. The paddle is heavy and splintered, and the heat rising from the pot makes your eyes water. The barley itself is coarse, pebbled with debris. You pick out 2 beetles before anyone notices. That's not the part that bothers you, it's the soreness. Spoilage has already begun, but you're told to mask it with herbs. You do as instructed, grinding dried onion and mountain salt into the pot, trying not to gag when a chunk of mold floats to the top. A woman beside you ladles water from a jug that looks like it once held wine. She smiles at you, not kindly, but like she's testing whether you'll break. "Don't forget the ashes," she says. You blink. Ashes? She points to a small bowl of scorched fig leaves and crushed charcoal. To darken the color. If it looks richer, they'll think it tastes better. So you add the ash. Stir again. The steam hits your face like a wet cloth. Behind you, boys run back and forth carrying wood that splinters in their arms. One of them slips, spilling kindling into the gruel pit. You fish out what you can. The rest dissolves. When the sun climbs high enough to blind you from the east, you begin the first serving. Bowls are chipped and uneven, made of wood or fired clay, some barely deeper than a hand. Workers shuffle through the line, heads bowed, hands outstretched. No one says thank you. Most don't even look up. One man stares at you for a beat too long, then mutters, "Too thin." You nod, though you don't care. The gruel is what it is. A child drops his bowl. The contents splash across the dirt, soaking into dust that was dung just days ago. He doesn't cry. He simply crouches and starts scooping with his fingers. You reach for another scoop to replace it, but the older cook slaps your wrist. "Wasteful," she hisses. "If you give him more, the others will expect the same." You hesitate, then look away. At midday, you get your portion. It tastes like warm mud laced with sadness. The ash adds bitterness. The salt does nothing. You chew as little as possible, swallow, and keep your head low. Across the fire pits, a group of priests walk past, carrying trays of offerings for a temple ceremony. Their bread is braided and golden. Their wine is thick and crimson. One of them sees you watching and narrows his eyes, as if your hunger is offensive. You look down. A fly lands in your bowl. You wave it off, but it returns. Later, someone vomits behind the pits. No one asks who. You hear the retching, the wet slap of bile against stone, and then the sound of water being wasted to rinse it away. You hope it wasn't from your pot. You can't be sure. You spend the afternoon scrubbing pots with sand and ash. Your fingers bleed at the knuckles. The woman who smiled at you before now hums to herself. You recognize the tune. It's a lullaby for children. She doesn't seem to notice her hands are raw. By dusk, the fires are low, and the stone wall behind you radiates heat like a second sun. You sit, not to rest, but because your knees have locked. Someone has fallen asleep upright beside a jug. You do not wake him. Historians still debate whether ancient Persian food distribution among labor classes was a form of control or necessity. From where you sit, it feels like both. They feed you just enough to keep your spine straight, but never enough to lift your eyes. You dream that night of roasted lamb, of spiced rice, of pomegranate juice dripping down your chin. Then you wake up hungry. The morning begins with shouting, not the kind that signals war or celebration, but the sharp, clipped barks of foremen eager to remind everyone of their place. You're assigned to the transport crew today, which sounds noble until you realize it means pushing massive carts of limestone up inclines that seem designed by punishment itself. The sun hasn't risen, but sweat is already pooling along your spine. You tighten the cloth around your waist and position yourself behind the cart's splintered handle. The wheels groan like they're dying, and maybe they are. The stone slab balanced atop the frame is meant for a noble's tomb marker, not a king, just a man rich enough to demand permanence. There's a strange vanity to it, a half-fed, ash-covered body, moving a monument for someone who probably never lifted anything heavier than a scroll. The cart creaks forward, and your feet slide in the dirt. Beside you, two others grunt with effort. No one speaks. Talking wastes breath. One stumbles, nearly sending the slab sideways. You all pause, panting. The overseer watches from the shade, drinking something red from a bronze cup. He lifts it slightly in mock salute. The route to the carving grounds winds through narrow paths carved between cliffs. You have to maneuver the cart through stone corridors where even the air feels compressed. It takes hours, and at one point, your sandals fall apart. The leather splits, and the heat of the rock beneath begins to burn your soles. You grit your teeth. There's no replacement. By mid-morning, you reach the site. Tools clang in the distance: stone chisels, iron picks, and mallets that beat in rhythm like war drums. You're not a carver, but you know the routine. Unload the stone. Stack it where told. Try not to be in the way. If a chisel slips, it could shear a finger. Or worse. You stand back and watch the stonesmiths at work. One man is blind in one eye, the other squinting in permanent distrust. He chips away at the slab with such precision, you think he might be reciting prayers through his fingertips. Dust coats everything: beards, lips, eyes. No one blinks anymore. They've adapted. Near the edge of the site, a boy your age is shaping a corner column. It's not going well. His hands are too soft, and the tool too heavy. The foreman shouts and grabs the mallet. He strikes once, twice, then throws the tool down. The boy nods silently. His knuckles are bleeding. You wonder if this is where you'll end up tomorrow, learning to carve under fear. Or maybe they'll send you back to the kitchens, or to sweep the palace latrines, which flood during rain and bake during sun. A break is called at midday. You sit in the shade of an unfinished pillar. Someone hands you a dry date. It's hard as bone, but you chew it anyway. Water is passed in a single jug, warm and sour. You sip and wipe your mouth on your forearm. Someone nearby jokes, "You know what happens if you drop a stone on your foot?" Another replies, "You become a priest, because you'll never walk again." The laughter is dry and tired. A historian once wrote that Persian craftsmanship elevated stone to language. That may be true, but here, it feels more like bruises talking to bruises. You hear nothing poetic in the hammering, only survival. When work resumes, the sun is high, and your back is stiff. Your arms feel like rope strung too tight. You help shift broken shards into piles. Some will be ground into pigment, some simply tossed off a ledge. Everything has a purpose, even debris. You spot a noblewoman watching from a platform above. Her face is veiled, but her jewelry is bright enough to catch the eye. She says nothing, but her guards do, pointing, whispering, laughing. You don't know if it's at you or someone else, but shame lands anyway. You look away. In the afternoon, a hawk circles overhead. The workers watch it, not because it's rare, but because it's free. One man mutters, "If I were a bird, I'd fly to the mountains and never look back." Another responds, "If you were a bird, you'd be cooked by now." Still, you look up too. By the time you return to the housing quarters, your shoulders are leaden. Blisters form beneath old calluses. Someone plays a reed flute softly in a far corner, and for a moment, it almost feels like peace. Almost. Historians still debate whether these labor systems under the Achaemenids were harsh by the standards of the time or merely efficient. To you, the difference is irrelevant. It's not cruelty you fear, it's the routine of it. And tomorrow, you'll push again. The next morning begins with the sound of sandals slapping against packed earth, someone running, someone late. You don't rise quickly anymore. Your body is teaching you the value of deliberate motion. Every muscle from your hips to your shoulders protests as you stretch. You slept on your side because your back ached from yesterday. Today, it will ache in new ways. You already know. Your task is temple related. You're not sure whether it's an honor or punishment. Temple work is considered sacred, but to the laborers, it's just a different flavor of suffering, quieter, yes, but filled with strict rituals and double the watchful eyes. You walk the path toward the hill shrine before dawn, passing the morning smoke of bread ovens and hearing the low chant of morning prayers spilling from stone courtyards. The temple guards meet you at the gate. They nod curtly and check your hands. They must be clean. Ritual purity is paramount. You were told once that in ancient times, those who prepared temple offerings bathed 7 times before lifting a jar of oil. Now, you just rinse your hands in a basin that smells of bitter herbs and something like vinegar. Your role today is scent bearer. You carry a bundle of resin, myrrh, and dried juniper, dropping pellets onto hot coals as the priest signal. It's not difficult, but it requires precision. The scent must rise just before the chants begin, and the priests are not generous with second chances. You kneel behind the altar screen, hidden from the sacred fire. A priest recites names of forgotten gods, some you've only heard whispered in folktales. You add the resin as instructed. A cloud of perfumed smoke curls upward, and for a moment, you forget the hunger gnawing at your ribs. Then someone sneezes. It's a guard. The high priest pauses and glares toward the sound. The guard bows. No one moves. The silence is so complete it buzzes. You stay frozen, resin clutched in your hand, afraid to breathe. Eventually, the chant resumes. Later, you're ordered to clean the brass altar bowls. They're hot to the touch, still warm from ritual fire. You don't complain. Complaining here is seen as impiety. You scrub with citrus peels and crushed eggshells until your fingers prune and sting. The priests pass you without acknowledgement. One flicks water on your forehead, purification or insult. You're not sure. The afternoon heat settles thickly. You assist with preparing sacrificial offerings, not animals today, but woven bread loaves shaped like horns, suns, and serpents. Each must be identical in size and spacing. You knead under the eye of a boy priest younger than you. He wears a golden sash and never blinks. When your dough lump comes out slightly uneven, he clicks his tongue. They'll think it's a bad omen, he says. You bite your lip and redo it. No one tells you what happens when an offering is rejected, only that it's worse than missing a shift. Near the temple courtyard, you spot a gathering of women laying out dyed fabrics for a festival. The colors dazzle: saffron, indigo, crimson. Each cloth bears a woven story: a lion devouring the moon, a king's coronation, the flight of a divine bird. You're not allowed to touch. These are for the fire dancers. You stand at a distance and watch. One of the women turns and smiles slightly. Her teeth are stained from chewing leaves. She doesn't speak. She just nods toward your resin basket, as if to say, "You carry smoke, we carry color, same weight." There's a quiet understanding in the air that everything you do here, no matter how small, feeds into something vast and unseen. And yet, you still feel invisible. As the sun dips low, temple bells chime for evening rites. You join the other low-caste workers near the back wall. You're not allowed to participate, only to witness. Flames rise, chants echo, and you feel a strange pull in your chest. It's not faith. It's not reverence. It's exhaustion disguised as awe. Historians still debate whether temple labor in ancient Persia was a true spiritual calling or a tool of social control. You don't care. Your knees hurt. Your hands are stained with ash. And the next day, someone else will carry the resin, but the ache in your arms will remain. When you're dismissed, night has already swallowed the horizon. You walk back in silence, the scent of burning juniper still clinging to your skin. At dawn, your stomach growls before your feet even touch the ground. There is no breakfast in the slums unless you count a cracked clay cup of goat milk mixed with something sour, maybe vinegar, maybe age. Either way, it coats your throat like spoiled hope. You drink it anyway, wiping your mouth with the back of your hand as you shuffle into the alley behind the barracks. Today, you've been selected for market duty. Not as a shopper, of course, those are noble tasks for people with coin and time. No, your job is to haul baskets of grain from the river docks to the market square. You're not alone. 24 others wait there too. Men and boys with arms like knotted rope and eyes that don't look at anything for long. One is missing a thumb. Another limps. All of you wear the same brown tunic stained with ash and sweat. No one talks. The grain arrives by boat, carried in rough sacks that chafe your shoulders raw. You are given a small cart to use, but one wheel sticks and makes the entire journey sound like a dying bird. You try to fix it, but your overseer simply yells, "Move faster," and points toward the ramp. You move. The riverfront smells like fish, rot, and urine. Somewhere in the haze, someone is singing a woman, her voice rising above the splashing oars. You glance over and see her crouched near a bundle of nets, humming to a baby slung across her back. The sound disappears beneath the grunt of another cart hitting a stone. The market is already buzzing by the time you arrive. Merchants shout about dates and spices, glass beads and saffron threads. But your world is narrower. You move to the granary stall and begin offloading the sacks. Each one is nearly your weight. You twist your spine as you lift, again and again, your fingers slipping on the burlap. A man near you drops a sack, and it bursts. Grain spills like water, and for a moment, there's panic. He falls to his knees to scoop it up. A guard strikes him with a rod. Not hard, but hard enough. "Waste is theft," the guard says. You look away. Your break comes at mid-morning, 15 minutes behind a tent that smells of vinegar and lamb. You squat in the dust, massaging your wrists, your back bent like a wilted reed. Someone tosses you a wedge of dry bread, so hard it cracks your tooth. You chew anyway. Nearby, a merchant's laughs. He's selling perfumed tiny bottles with silver stoppers. Imported from the Western Sea, he boasts. A noblewoman stops to sniff one. Her robe is embroidered with birds you've never seen. She wrinkles her nose and moves on. You wonder if she saw you. Probably not. The afternoon is worse. The sun turns the stone square into an oven. The shade retreats like it's afraid. You're now delivering wine casks heavy and leaking, their slick surfaces hard to grip. One slips and rolls down a slope, knocking over a stack of clay pots. You hold your breath. The stall owner curses, but not at you. He blames the heat. You live to haul another hour. At one point, A brawl breaks out between two weavers over a spool of dyed silk. You see one grab a spindle and swing it like a club. Blood spills. A child screams. The city guard arrives too late and takes both men away. The silk is trampled. You try not to think too much about it. Thinking leads to questions, and questions lead to mistakes. You keep your eyes low. As the market closes, the air cools slightly, and the smell shifts less of spices, more of waste. Merchants pack up. Some give leftover fruit to children who appear like spirits. You don't wait for gifts. You return your cart and walk back to your quarters, your hands shaking slightly from the strain. Historians still debate whether Persian marketplaces were sites of cultural exchange or barely controlled chaos. From where you stood, it was both a place where silk met sweat, where luxury shimmered just out of reach while your feet bled on the stones. You dream of food that night. Not feasts, just a soft fig, a warm cup of milk, a bite that doesn't hurt. You wake up hungrier than before. You're not used to being indoors, but this morning, you find yourself inside a crumbling mud brick compound, waiting for orders from a man dressed in dark wool, whose only luxury appears to be a polished copper clasp on his belt. You were sent here for a reason, not for your strength, but for your memory. Today, you're a courier and errand runner trusted with words, not tools. Which should be easier, but somehow feels heavier. You're handed a folded parchment sealed with red wax and pressed with a symbol you can't quite make out. Repeat back the message, the man says. You blink. The letter is sealed. The verbal one, he clarifies, and then recites 27 words in a clipped dialect you've only heard twice in your life. You repeat them. He corrects you once, then again, then nods. Outside, the air tastes like sand and wood smoke. You tuck the letter inside your tunic. Feel its heat against your skin despite the morning chill. You have two messages, one spoken, one written. Both must arrive unaltered. If either changes, so does your fate. No one tells you what the letter says, but you know it matters. People like him don't send couriers like you unless something important is at stake. Your destination lies 2 hills away, across uneven stone roads that wind through narrow passes and sun-bleached fields. You walk briskly at first, passing goat herders and fig sellers who don't look twice. The letter burns against your chest. You whisper the verbal message under your breath as you go, again and again. You can't forget it. You won't allow yourself. Halfway up a rocky slope, your sandal strap breaks. You curse softly and limp for 10 more minutes before tearing a strip from your hem to bind your foot. A bird watches from a date palm, its call echoing like a warning. You reach the ridge by midday, sweating through your robe. The wind picks up here, stirring dry leaves and grit. The path narrows. In the distance, you spot a broken Tory-style gate, unusual, ancient, left from a forgotten time when trade reached across empires. You duck beneath it like stepping into another world. Near the village, a boy stops you and asks what you're carrying. His voice is curious, not malicious. You smile tightly and say, "Words." He lets you pass. At the gate, 2 guards examine your hands, your face, your feet. They search for weapons, but never check your waistband. The letter remains hidden. You're brought before a minor official, older, bald, uninterested. You recite the verbal message exactly, down to the cadence. His expression shifts. He takes the sealed letter without thanks and turns away. You're dismissed without a word. You walk back slowly. Your shoulders ache less now. The road feels less steep. But a part of you wonders what would have happened if you'd forgotten even one word. You've heard stories. In some provinces, messengers who misquote a phrase are beaten. In others, they vanish entirely. And yet, there's power in what you've done, this invisible tether between cities, carried only in your mind. Some call you expendable. Others call you sacred. Historians still debate whether Persian couriers were revered agents of precision or disposable instruments in a web of silent politics. The truth probably depends on how well they perform. As you descend toward your village, dusk colors the sky in ochre and violet. Your feet blister. Your mind replays the message, now irrelevant. You feel both emptier and prouder than you did before. You pass the same boy. He doesn't look up this time. You don't say anything either. This morning, the air feels different, louder, sharper, as if the village itself is bracing for something. You're shaken from your thin sleep not by roosters or the rattle of carts, but by drums. Heavy, rhythmic, insistent drums. You stumble out of your doorway and follow the sound, barefoot on packed earth, until you reach the main road where others are already gathering, whispering, shifting nervously. Today is a festival day. You had forgotten, but not the kind with dancing or laughter. This one's different. Sacred, they say. Ancient. You don't understand it entirely, and that's part of the point. You're not meant to. It's for the gods and the priests, not for the peasants, except when your body is needed to fill the crowd, to raise a cheer, or to offer food that your household can barely spare. Long cloth banners are being raised across wooden poles. Their edges are frayed. The symbols on them are old curved script and half-faded animal forms that no one alive can read. The high priest, cloaked in a thick robe despite the heat, walks slowly toward the shrine in the village's center. His face is painted. His sandals are gold-wrapped. Everyone lowers their eyes, except the children, who are too young to fear properly. You take your place among them silent, still, sore from yesterday's labor and wait. A man next to you mutters something about last year's festival. A fire in the granary, blamed on bad omens. You remember that too. The whispers afterward, the silent meal, the prayers that lasted too long. The priest stops before the shrine, which is more a rock than a building. It's wrapped in linen, smeared with oils and bits of burnt ash. He raises his hands. The crowd leans forward. A goat is brought forward, tethered and shaking, eyes wide. You feel a knot twist in your stomach. There is no speech, just motion. A sharp blade, a moment of tension, and the sudden silence that follows. The blood spills into a carved channel that runs down the rock's face. Children are ushered back. You stay frozen. Afterward, a strange calm descends. The villagers form a line to touch the stone, to smear ash on their foreheads, to whisper thanks or apologies. You're pushed forward with the others. You don't know what to say, so you whisper nothing at all. The scent of the offering mixes with the scent of crushed flowers, the smoke of burning myrrh, and the dust kicked up by the crowd. Someone begins to sing a low, humming tone that others join until it becomes a single note carried by hundreds of voices. You add yours quietly, because you believe, but because not joining feels louder than joining. Historians still debate whether these regional festivals were rooted in true theological structure or served mainly as social reinforcement rituals to keep the hierarchy intact. You don't ponder that. You're just tired, and you're hungry. The goat's meat will be shared. You won't get much, but enough to taste. Enough to forget yesterday's moldy lentils. By midday, the drums return, now softer. Children paint their faces with crushed berries. Teenagers steal honeyed nuts from the altar baskets. The priest disappears behind a curtain and isn't seen again. The day fades slowly, like breath on stone. At night, there's no ceremony, no part two. Just the lingering feeling that something was seen and something was lost. You lie awake on your mat, eyes closed, trying to remember the symbols on the banners. You saw a lion maybe, or a griffin. You're not sure it matters. The important thing is that the gods were noticed, that you were there, that the village is quiet now, and the drums have stopped, but your ears still ring with their echo. You don't often walk the road to the citadel. It curves high above the village, perched like a vulture on a cliff, with its tiled towers and sun-bleached banners catching the wind. But this morning, your master sends you there with a bundle of papyrus scrolls tied in silk ribbon records of land, taxes, births. You're told to deliver them to a clerk named Shapper, and not to speak unless spoken to. The climb is long. The stone steps are wide enough for 3 men to walk abreast. But no one joins you. Most villagers never come here. The guards at the top don't smile. They look down at you, eyes hidden beneath iron-scaled helmets. One checks the ribbon on the scrolls. One snorts. They let you pass. Inside, the world changes. It smells of crushed jasmine and sandalwood instead of sheep dung. The floors are polished white stone. You walk more carefully here, afraid your dusty feet will leave a mark. You pass rooms where men sit on low cushions, speaking in a language you've only heard when the tax collectors visit. Their robes are light linen. Their rings catch the light, You can't tell which ones are nobles and which are just scribes. It doesn't matter. They all look through you. You're led to a waiting area. A servant, young, shaved head, expression blank, places a copper tray in front of you with figs and water. You don't touch them. You're not sure if it's a trick. After a long time, a man arrives. His beard is oiled, his hands pale and ink-stained. "Follow me," he says without looking at you. You do. Shapur's chamber is lined with scroll racks and thin bronze plaques covered in etched script. He barely glances at the bundle you carry. "Place them there," he mutters. You obey. Then, silence. You wait. It stretches. Finally, he speaks again. "Your village owes 2 sacks of barley more than reported. We'll collect them next moon." You nod. Heart sinking. He returns to his ledger. You're dismissed. As you leave, you pass an open door and glimpse a hall filled with low tables, covered in fine ceramics and trays of dried fruit. No one is eating. A woman lounges in the corner, fanning herself slowly. A painted bird flits across the wall, a mural. You realize, not a real bird. It's strange how wealth reshapes your sense of reality. Back outside, the sun feels harsher, the stairs longer. You clutch your empty hands and descend with a new understanding. Power lives above you, literally. These men don't need to shout. Their silence does the shouting for them. Historians still debate how permeable the social classes of ancient Persia truly were, whether clever commoners could rise, or whether the illusion of mobility was just that, illusion. You don't debate. You descend the stairs. Back in your village, the shadows stretch longer now. You pass your neighbor digging irrigation ditches, his hands cracked. You pass the baker's wife fanning flies off her dough. The same world, but now it feels narrower, like you've seen behind a curtain, only to realize the curtain leads nowhere. That night, you dream of staircases, endless ones, and scrolls that whisper your name. You drag your feet through the clay-lined street, the same one you've walked each day since you could first balance a basket on your hip. The sun still hovers above the rooftops, but the shadows grow longer with each breath you take. Your morning was spent laboring in the dusty courtyard of the temple complex, and though your hands still sting from scrubbing limestone tiles with sand, you are not yet finished. The elder has summoned you again, this time not for sweeping, but to help prepare for the ritual of the third moon. You already know what that means. Carrying, lifting, grinding, fetching, hours of silent movement, while the priests drone prayers that barely sound like your language anymore. As you turn down a narrow alley, the scent of warm blood and crushed fig leaves drifts in from the open market. You catch sight of a child chasing a rooster between cracked stones, and wonder, for just a second, what it would feel like to be that free. But the thought flickers and disappears as your arm tightens instinctively around the bundle of firewood you're meant to deliver. This is not a day for freedom. The temple looms at the edge of the quarter, its dome catching what remains of the sun like an upturned bronze bowl. The gatekeeper nods without looking directly at you. You pass through the arch, your footsteps swallowed by the hush inside. Every surface here is cleaner than anything in your home. Smoother. You wonder how many hours of scrubbing it takes to keep stone this white. You wonder if the gods even notice. Inside the storeroom, you find a pile of ritual tools already laid out: bronze dishes, incense cones, a long-handled ladle, a heavy pestle, and 3 bundles of dried herbs tied with cord. The priest who supervises the preparation speaks in short, clipped tones, gesturing more than he explains. You are to grind the herbs, light the fire, and keep the smoke steady. He reminds you that the flame must not flicker during the chanting. If it does, it could be seen as an omen. Not for him, of course for you. As your fingers bruise the dried hyssop and sage in the stone mortar, the scent rises sharp, almost medicinal. The smoke curls upward in lazy spirals, and you breathe through your mouth to keep the sting from your eyes. Outside the chamber, you hear the slow, rhythmic beat of a drum signaling the start of the procession. Another priest slips inside, cradling a bronze vessel etched with crescent shapes. He places it gently beside the fire and nods. Inside the vessel is blood. Goat. Probably. Or something else. You don't ask. You never ask. Your role is not to understand the meaning behind the rituals, but to keep them running like grease on gears or water in the aqueduct. The priests say the gods require balance: heat, smoke, scent, blood, stone. But no one ever mentions labor. No one includes your back pain, your blistered palms, your dry mouth in the sacred equations. The ritual begins in earnest when the high priest arrives, face painted with ochre and lips wet with wine. He chants in tones you can't follow, lifting his arms toward the vaulted ceiling, and the others respond in unison. Your hands do not stop. You feed the fire, you fan the coals, you lift and pour and bow. You do not exist as a person in this space, only as a set of movements. And yet, this ritual is not for the gods alone. Tonight, it is said, they will petition divine favor for the planting season. You know that if the rains come late, the fields will turn to dust. If the prayers are weak, the people will suffer. You have no control over the rain, but still, you fear your mistakes may be blamed if the gods remain silent. A strand of your hair falls into your face. You don't dare brush it away. The last assistant who fumbled during a full moon rite was reassigned to latrine duty for 3 months. Not because the mistake was serious, only because it was visible. Historians still debate whether these temple rites in early Persian cities were genuine spiritual expressions or thinly veiled mechanisms for social control. The gods were always watching, yes, but so were the priests, and so were the elites who paid for the incense and gold threads. Even the stars on the temple ceiling seemed to glare down at you like carved eyes, unmoving and eternal. You shift your weight as the ritual drones on, and your knees ache from the marble floor. The incense is almost gone. You slice another cone and press it into the embers, which hiss in reply. The scent sharpens again. This time it carries a note you hadn't expected, something sour, almost rotten. You glance at the vessel, now steaming faintly. You dare not question it. The ceremony ends, not with the conclusion, but with the fading. The priests file out in reverse order, robes rustling like dead leaves. You stay behind to clean. You wipe each dish, sweep the ash, carry the spent herbs to the refuse pit. No one thanks you. No one speaks. You walk home with smoke in your lungs and soot in your hair. That night, you sleep fitfully, your muscles twitching with memory. In your dream, you kneel in the same chamber, but the fire is blue, the smoke whispers, and the vessel is empty. You wake before dawn, hand curled as if still grasping the ladle. The scent of sage still clings to your skin. You wake to the faint buzz of voices outside the window, sharp, hurried, unmistakably agitated. The small cloth you've used as a blanket has slipped to the floor, and the dampness in the air clings to your skin like cobweb. There's no chance to stretch, no time to gather your thoughts. Outside, the square is already alive, and today isn't like other days. Today is the first day of the fire festival. You remember the way your grandmother used to speak of this occasion, a time to honor Ahura Mazda and cleanse the past year's sins in a burst of fire and light. But in your experience, the celebration mostly means long hours of labor, dangerous crowds, and the constant fear of being crushed, burned, or blamed for something gone wrong. You rise from the floor and splash a bit of water onto your face. The well was already low yesterday, and you're expected to conserve it. The skin beneath your eyes is darker than usual, but you don't stop to care. The tasks await. Down the alley, people are already setting up shrines and assembling piles of wood. You join a line of other workers carrying bundles of dried reeds toward the ceremonial square, dodging children swinging oil lamps and old men haggling over saffron powder. Your own bundle pricks into your back, but there's no time to adjust. You've been assigned to the farthest altar, where the flames must be kept steady through the night. The elders call it an honor. You call it exhausting. By midday, the smoke thickens in the air. Already, 3 small fires have sputtered out and had to be relit. One boy fainted from the heat. You help fan the embers beneath your altar, fingers turning black from ash and soot. The festival might look like joy from afar with its vibrant robes, music, and dancing, but up close, it's a choreography of chaos. Everyone moving quickly, nervously, fearing the wrath of gods and men should the rituals fail to impress. In the corner of the square, a woman recites prayers while holding a white rooster, preparing for the purification rite. You've heard that in some regions, people believe that the sins of an entire household can be transferred to the bird. It will be swung over their heads 3 times and then released. If it flies straight, the year will bring blessings. If not, well, better not think about it. You've also heard rumors that some households simply tie the wings to ensure the right direction. After all, who wants to risk bad omens? The older priest overseeing your station instructs you to keep the flame from dying at all costs. He doesn't elaborate on what happens if you fail, but you've seen last year's assistant now limping and missing 2 fingers. Whether it was the fire or the punishment that did it, you never found out. You crouch beside the fire pit and feed it dried pomegranate branches. The scent is sweeter than you expect. It reminds you of when you were younger, when your family could afford fruit after the harvest. Those days are gone now, dried up like the branches you burn. Your only job is to keep the sacred flame alive until the stars fade. One of the quirkiest traditions of the fire festival is what happens at midnight. When the fires are at their brightest, and the music reaches a fever pitch, people leap over the flames while shouting, "Take my pallor, give me your glow." Supposedly, this allows the fire to absorb your sickness, your sorrow, and your fear. But as you watch grown men fling themselves over crackling embers, robes catching dangerously close to sparks, you can't help but think it looks more like desperation than hope. A girl no older than 9 runs past you with a pot of incense, and the trail of smoke she leaves behind stings your throat. You press a cloth to your mouth and continue tending the altar. The drumbeats grow louder. Someone begins shouting. Someone else is sobbing. You don't know if it's joy or grief. The two often blur here. Historians still debate whether the ancient Zoroastrian fire festivals were rooted in sincere cosmological belief, or gradually became public spectacles to assert community order. Some argue that the fires represented the divine spark of creation. Others say they served as reminders of the priesthood's power to control what was sacred and what was not. As the night deepens, your arms grow heavy. You've fanned the flame so long that the heat has become a second skin. You see others with blistered hands, red eyes, noses streaked with soot. Still, no one dares complain. Complaining is seen as weakness, and weakness, in the eyes of the divine, is often mistaken for guilt. Suddenly, a gust of wind topples one of the side altars nearby. The flame flickers out. A hush falls over that section of the square, sharp, unnatural, suffocating. The assistant at that station begins frantically striking flint, trying to relight it, but nothing catches. You feel the fear ripple across the crowd like a second wind. You turn back to your own flame and shield it with your body. You cannot let this one die too. Sweat drips into your eyes, and your knees tremble from hours of kneeling. But you keep fanning, keep feeding, keep whispering to yourself that it must hold. Eventually, dawn begins to stretch her fingers across the horizon. The fires are allowed to wane. The last prayers are whispered. Offerings are gathered. People begin to disperse, not with the energy of celebration, but with the sag of relief. You've made it through. The gods have seen your smoke. Whether they listened is another matter. You stagger back home with your clothes smelling of ash and your throat raw. You lie on the floor, too tired to remove the smudges from your skin. Your dreams are of flames, of faces leaping through fire, of feathers catching light and vanishing into sparks. You hardly rest before the calls begin again, sharp, metallic sounds carried through narrow alleys by boys with bells and voices too loud for dawn. The city's waking rhythm is more command than invitation, and you have no choice but to obey. You drag yourself up, body sore, eyelids heavy from smoke and exhaustion. The embers of last night still cling to your clothes, but no one waits for you to freshen up. You are needed now not for worship, but for vigilance. Because today is patrol day. Once a month, the satrap's guards make their rounds through the residential quarters, and everyone's expected to stand straight, appear useful, and make no mistakes. You fall into the growing queue of neighbors pretending not to be terrified. The guards aren't just looking for criminals. They're searching for suspicion, for dissent, for excuses to make an example of someone. And if someone fails to produce their tax chit, or speaks too softly or too loudly, they may be pulled aside and vanish for days, sometimes forever. You stand beside a merchant who smells like last week's fish and clutches his registry scroll like it's a shield. On your other side is a weaver whose hands tremble so violently, She drops her identification tablet 3 times before the officer reaches her. He sneers but waves her through. Today? You're lucky. The officer barely glances at you, but luck doesn't feel like safety. It just means you live to be afraid again next week. Once the patrol passes, life resumes, but not easily. The tension lingers like smoke. The boy next door returns pale and quiet after being questioned. No one asks what they asked. No one wants to know. You make your way to the market stalls, weaving between donkeys, priests, and bakers hawking yesterday's bread. You're not there to buy. You can't afford to. You're there to listen. It's in the markets where whispers live rumors of raids on nearby towns, of border tensions with Greek mercenaries, of temple thefts that may or may not be inside jobs. You hear everything and learn nothing for certain, except that fear sells faster than grain. You stop at a corner where a scribe is reading aloud recent proclamations. He reads slowly, as if each syllable carries weight. New rules on curfew hours. New taxes on linen. New permissions required to store more than 5 amphorae of oil. You feel your chest tighten. The oil was supposed to last you through the hot season, but now it may be confiscated unless you offer tribute. In the crowd, someone mutters a complaint too loudly. Another rule every week. Are we supposed to eat stone now? The scribe stumbles, suddenly aware. You glance around. Too many eyes have heard. The man who spoke ducks his head and melts into the crowd. No one mentions him again. Later, you pass the temple square where a trial is in progress. A boy, barely older than 12, is accused of theft. They say he took 3 figs and a strip of cloth. You can't see his eyes through the dust and distance, but his mother's scream is unmistakable. He was hungry, she cries. He was hungry. The judges, draped in white, whisper among themselves. One holds a bronze staff. Another fingers prayer beads. Eventually, they declare that the boy must serve as a bondservant for 7 moons. The mother collapses. A priest leads her away. The boy is taken in silence. The crowd pretends it saw nothing. There's a quirky tradition here. On the day following public judgment, the condemned are allowed to write a single line of poetry or prayer, which is then posted on a wall near the temple. Some write curses, others blessings. One inscription you read last year still lingers in your memory. I was taught to share figs, not steal them. It was erased the next day. Historians still debate whether ancient Persian legal customs reflected a true pursuit of justice or functioned primarily as tools of political order. The law, they argue, was both a shield and a blade protecting the structure while slicing at dissent. You leave the square with a bitter taste in your mouth. The sun is high now, and the stone walls shimmer with heat. Your sandals burn against the dry road. You stop briefly under the shade of a fig tree. For a moment, you consider picking one, just one, but your hand remains at your side. Hunger can wait, risk cannot. As you near home, you spot a shadow moving along the edge of the rooftops. A falcon circles, then dives. It misses its mark, rises again, then disappears into the sky. You watch it longer than necessary, envying its height, its distance, its silence. The rest of the day unravels slowly. You clean what needs cleaning, mend what can be mended, speak when spoken to. The sun begins its descent, and you feel the familiar weight of the evening pressing down. There's little light left and less food, but still, you breathe. Still, you endure. The night arrives not as a blanket, but as a blindfold. You lie on the mat and listen to the city's heartbeat, distant drums, closing gates. One last shout. You think of the boy who leapt over fire yesterday, and the boy who stole a fig today. You wonder which one will be remembered, and which one will vanish like ash in the wind. The sky cracks open with thunder long before the storm begins. You rise at dawn, not to greet the morning, but to flee from it. Lightning dances over the Zagros foothills, illuminating twisted trails and shattered stones. Today is a March day, not a celebration, not a harvest, a conscription call. Your village, like many in the hinterlands, has been summoned by the imperial scribes to provide support personnel for the army's western campaign. Support, in this case, means walking, marching, hauling, digging, carrying, sometimes dying. You are not a warrior. You are something between a mule and a witness, and you do not get to say no. By mid-morning, You've joined a caravan of 50 others farmhands, brickmakers, herders, most barely clothed for the journey. Each person holds a sealed clay tag issued by the satrapy office. It lists your name, your task, and your assigned ration amount. The rumor says the rations are always less than promised. You don't ask questions. The man beside you once did, and he now limps with a permanent injury from a discipline cane. His tag reads, Water Runner. You don't ask what yours says. You pass through dry villages with eyes watching from shuttered homes. No one waves. No one sings. The silence is not respect. It's grief rehearsed in advance. Somewhere past the salt hills, you reach the army's outer camp. Dozens of tents rise like scars against the plain. There are warriors, yes, Persians in tall headdresses, Scythians with curved bows, even Greek mercenaries who spit in their own language and seem amused by everything. But then there are the rest: cooks, scribes, grooms, porters, interpreters, surgeons, and you. You're handed a sack of earth tools light enough to carry, heavy enough to blister. Today, you'll be helping build a rampart for a fortification that might never be used. You dig trenches so that others may sleep safely. You drive stakes into ground so dry it cracks in protest. You are bitten by insects, cursed by supervisors, and ignored by generals. The quirky detail that catches your eye comes at midday. A commander walks past holding what appears to be a pomegranate carved from gold. It's not a fruit, it's a reliquary of dried petals soaked in frankincense. They say it brings luck in battle. You wonder how much food its weight could buy. You wonder if luck can be eaten. By sunset, the wind rises. Dust coats your skin and gets under your nails. Someone's ox dies in the yoke and must be butchered before it swells. You see none of it. You are told to focus on your trench. The night is not rest. It is noise. Fighters sing war songs in languages you can't parse. Drums beat too fast for your heartbeat to keep up. Someone weeps into his sleeve. Another sharpens a blade by firelight, eyes gleaming with a light you hope never turns toward you. A boy not more than 15 asks if you know how to fasten a saddle for the camels. You shake your head. He nods. I'll teach you. If they like you, they might let you stay close to the animals instead of digging. His face is sunburned and hopeful. You say yes, even if you don't mean it. Hope is too rare to correct. Historians still debate whether the Persian logistic system, often praised in ancient records, truly ensured humane conditions for its auxiliary laborers, or whether such claims were propaganda designed to mask systemic hardship. The roads may have been royal, but not everyone walked them with dignity. Sleep is scattered that night. You dream of your village, of a fig tree in bloom, of your mother placing cool cloth on your forehead. But you wake, not to comfort, but to shouting. A skirmish near the riverbank has broken out. You're told to stay back, but fear is a poor leash. You creep near enough to see torches waving in panic, silhouettes tumbling into water, and the sickening sound of metal against bone. By morning, 3 men are missing. No one says their names. A cleric offers a chant to the rising sun, while soldiers stomp past carrying broken shields. Your trench has collapsed slightly from the vibrations. You are told to fix it. There's a moment brief and odd when you find a shard of painted pottery in the dirt. It depicts a man with wings and a lion's tail. You turn it in your hand, wondering if it belonged to a plate, a temple, a home. The figure's eyes seem to look at you. You bury it again, unsure why. Midday heat presses down. Food is dry barley cake and vinegar water. The boy with the camel knowledge is gone. You don't ask where. A rider from the capital arrives with new orders. Half the camp will move east tomorrow. You're not told which half. You pack anyway. You glance at the horizon and realize, for the first time, that you've forgotten how far from home you are. The sun sets again, and you stretch out under a tarp that flaps in the wind like wings trying to escape. Tomorrow, you might march again, or dig, or die. You no longer count the options. You just count the steps. You awaken to a horn blast that rattles your bones more than your ears. The tent above you billows like a belly in the wind, straining at the seams from the night storm. Your back aches from sleeping on a slope of stones and discarded armor straps. Someone kicks your ankle and tells you to hurry. The officers are calling for everyone, not just the warriors. You don't know why at first. You shuffle toward the rallying square where the troops have gathered in loose lines, barefoot conscripts beside jewel-draped elites. The commander stands atop a cart. His voice is iron and smoke. There's to be a ceremony, he says. Not a feast, not a reward, but a demonstration of loyalty. You feel the words settle over the crowd like dust before a collapse. Today, you're marching with the sacred fire. Not all campaigns in the empire are won with blades. The gods, you're told, must walk with the men who fight. So a fire, lit by temple priests and never extinguished, is being transported to the front lines in a copper brazier. Your task? Walk beside it, protect it, feed it dry branches if the wind falters. The brazier rests on a wooden litter carried by 4 trembling shoulders, yours among them. It's heavier than you imagine. The metal sears your arm with every shift. You can't tell if the smoke smells holy or just like burning hair. The procession moves at a crawl, trailing incense and expectation. Soldiers kneel as you pass. Some touch their foreheads to the earth. One spits. You don't believe the flame is divine, but you believe in being seen believing. That's safer. A man in robes walks beside you, chanting names you don't recognize. He hands you a pouch of sand. In case it dies, he says, scatter this and say nothing. You don't ask why. You nod like you've done this before. At midday, the path narrows between 2 rocky ledges. A gust nearly snuffs the flame. You lunge with the kindling. Sparks hiss upward. You can't tell if you saved it or ruined it, but the chanting never stops. That must mean something. Later, you're permitted to rest. The fire is placed in a trench surrounded by stones. Guards are posted. The robed men sleep sitting up, arms wrapped around a scroll. You eat a handful of lentils and stale bread. You imagine what it would be like to drop the fire into a well. Would the gods forgive you? Would anyone? A whisper reaches your ear, one of the porters muttering about the flame-bearers of old. He says they used to wear silver masks and walk barefoot across embers. He says one caught fire and didn't scream. You don't believe him, but the image stays with you anyway. Historians still debate whether these rituals truly invoke divine favor or were merely state-sanctioned theater to manipulate morale and control. The next day, you are not called to carry the fire again. The brazier leaves without you, flanked by a new crew of shoulders. You feel a strange absence in your limbs, like forgetting how to walk. The robed man nods as he passes. You wonder if he remembers your name. You return to your trench, but the dirt feels different now. You look around and see soldiers sharpening blades that won't be used for weeks. Others carve symbols into their armor. Some wear small amulets made of bone, hung on string. Superstition blooms faster than crops. Then comes the surprise, a day of rest. It's not real rest. It's ordered observation of a holy event. Everyone is told to gather before a makeshift altar where a priest invokes Ahura Mazda. There are recitations, songs, a roasted lamb for the officers. You kneel with the others, unsure what to say. Someone hands you a reed flute and gestures for you to join in. You place it to your lips and blow a single note that quivers like your knees. This is peace, they tell you, between the cracks of war. Later, as the sun bleeds down the hills, you see something you'll never forget: a hawk circling the camp with a strip of red cloth in its talons. Soldiers cheer, believing it a sign. The elders bow their heads. You just stare. A quiet voice behind you murmurs, "The gods don't send hawks, but men see what they need." You don't turn to look. That night, you sit near the last embers of the sacred fire, all cold and scattered. You wonder what its journey meant. You wonder if the gods ever noticed, or if, like you, they just watched in silence. You don't remember falling asleep, but you remember waking cold, stiff, and oddly aware that something is ending. The stars above you have shifted, subtly, like they've watched your every breath, and are now prepared to move on. Around you, the camp stirs. There are fewer fires now. Some soldiers have already vanished, marching at dawn with new assignments. New lords, new gods perhaps. Your task is simple today: pack up, return what doesn't belong to you, and be ready for reassignment. But nothing feels simple anymore. Your clothes no longer fit right. The boots you were given 3 weeks ago are worn at the soles. Your hands carry the smell of ash and animal fat that no amount of sand can scrub away. Even your breath feels like it carries residue from the last campfire, smoky and slightly bitter. A messenger arrives. Not for you, never for you, but the scroll he delivers contains names. A dozen are called. You wait. Your name doesn't echo. You're neither chosen nor dismissed. You are forgotten. So, you clean the spears. You wrap the empty ration bags. You untangle the lines of the horse stakes. And all the while, you listen. Gossip flows like melted wax. One soldier claims a general collapsed during prayer. Another says the flame wasn't sacred at all, just pig fat soaked in dye. Historians still debate whether these military rites were genuine religious offerings or elaborate performances meant to bind loyalty through spectacle. Someone mutters near the supply tent, half buried in a coat 3 sizes too big. But debate won't change the fact that war is coming again. By midday, it's time to descend the mountain. The path is slick with old rains and loose gravel. You carry a bundle of torches you didn't ask for. Your back aches. You feel older than your years. There is no ceremony, no line of farewell. You just leave. The trail coils downward like an angry serpent, biting your feet with every misstep. Each loose rock beneath your heel feels like a warning. Your balance wavers. You lean into the wind. You catch the scent of something burning in the valley, a reminder that no place is safe for long. At one bend in the trail, you find a broken wheel, half buried in the mud. It's been here long enough to grow moss. A forgotten cart, like a fossil with splinters. And then you reach the edge. A ridge overlooking the valley below. You see it at once. The enemy. Distant banners, faint smoke columns, the shimmer of shields. They're not near, not yet, but they exist. And they wait. You feel a tightness in your stomach that isn't fear. It's something heavier, something final. You descend further. At the next outpost, you meet the cook again. He laughs when he sees you. Still alive? He asks, tossing you a half-burnt crust of bread. You nod. That's all there is to say. You eat. You scratch at the bites on your ankles. You try to sleep sitting up. You're back against a crate of onions that stinks like rot and mold. The moon doesn't rise tonight. Or maybe you just never look up. The next morning, you're assigned to cart duty. Not horses, oxen. Slow, flat-footed beasts with eyes like tired priests. You guide them through a narrow canyon where echoes return slower than footsteps. One wheel breaks on a stone. You fix it with a rusted nail and silent curses. Your hands bleed, just a little, and you press your palm to your robe to hide the stain. Later that day, you cross a bridge made of chain-linked boats. You don't like the feel of it swaying underfoot. You keep your gaze low, trying not to look at the river. You remember a man who drowned 2 weeks ago. No one dove in after him. Not because they didn't care, but because they couldn't swim. You're not sure you can either. On the other side, you find a new camp. Larger, louder, meaner. It's not a place where new recruits arrive. This is where they send the ones who've survived too long. You see it in their eyes. Men and women who stare through walls, who sleep with one boot on, who count their spoons before and after every meal. You're given a new bedroll, thinner than the last. You're handed another blade. You sharpen it with the same rhythm you've always used. But the edge feels different now. Not sharper, just more familiar. You begin to forget what day it is. You forget your old commander's name. You stop asking questions. Until one evening, you're summoned again. Not for punishment, not for recognition, but for the fire. Another brazier, another torch relay. You're one of the few who've done it before. You're told this time, the journey is longer. There is no sand pouch handed to you now, only silence and expectation. You lift the litter with 3 others. One grunts. Another stares straight ahead like he's seeing his death in the smoke. You walk. You walk until your feet blister through the wrappings. You walk until your breath wheezes like a cracked bellows. You walk until the flame starts to flicker, not from wind, but from hunger, yours and its own. At one point, a dog follows you. Thin, ribbed, eyes full of wild hope. It stays for a mile before vanishing into the shrubs. You wonder if it was ever real. And just before the flame dies, you arrive. The temple is humble, half carved from rock, half from memory. The priest accepts the flame with trembling hands. He thanks you without looking at you. You nod. You collapse nearby, watching as he feeds the fire with shavings of cedar and a whisper you can't hear. You smell rose oil. Or maybe it's just sap. You blink slowly. Your vision doubles, then steadies. The sun is setting. Your shift is over. Your story, for now, pauses. You lie back on the cold stone floor and listen to the crackling embers. You are not dead, but you are finished. Somewhere above, the wind carries a sound you can't name. Maybe laughter, maybe a scream. You close your eyes, and in the dark behind them, a shape begins to form, not a memory, not quite a dream. Just the whisper of something beyond flame, beyond hunger, beyond duty. The world fades, and finally, you sleep. The fire dims now. Just a flicker among the ashes, its soft glow barely enough to light the walls of your memory. You feel its warmth slowly retreat, not vanishing, but tucking itself in like a tired thought. The burdens of the day, mud-caked boots, blistered hands, words unsaid slide from your shoulders with the quiet grace of falling dust. You breathe in once more, deeply. The air is cooler now, easier. The sounds of the world grow distant. The clang of blades, the cries of tired messengers, even the whispers of the gods, they all fade into something softer, like stories told through fabric. There's nothing left for you to carry tonight. Not the scrolls, not the spears, not even the names. The earth beneath you no longer feels hard. It feels still, and stillness is a kind of mercy. In this silence, your breath takes on a rhythm you don't have to think about. In, out, like waves on a quiet sea. You're not watching anymore. You're drifting, not away from something but into something gentler, deeper, quieter. The smoke curls one last time, then vanishes. Good night.